Hey guys, it's your pal Victor here from Cult Classics AZ and Cult Following, rocking the quarantine beard, because that's what I do. So we're doing another review here on the channel. This is a review that's up on cultfollowing.co right now, but I want to talk about a little bit since Pride Month just ended, and I want to talk about Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street. And this is a documentary. It's up now on Shudder, and it is a documentary about Mark Patton, who is the actor who played Jesse in A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, back in 1985. So one of the things that, if you grew up in the 80s and 90s like me, Nightmare on Elm Street in the 80s was like everywhere. That was like the horror jam besides like Friday the 13th. And when A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1 came out in 84, that was like such a huge movie, and Wes Craven was back. And, they rushed right into production on A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Like, Nightmare 1 came out in 84, Nightmare 2 comes out in 85. That's how quick we're talking. And it's like the 35th anniversary of Nightmare on Elm Street 2 this year. So it's kind of timely this came out. So basically, the film is a really interesting documentary in that it's all about the actor Mark Patton, who played Jesse, and sort of like at the same time it's a documentary kind of like dealing what like the 80s was like for gay or closeted actors, behind the velvet curtain, whatnot, working in the 80s as the AIDS epidemic was breaking out. And, when AIDS was a thing in the mid 80s, like it broke out, it was like the gay cancer, and like people didn't know how you got AIDS or anything. I remember it being a scary time. Like people used to think you could get it from like a drinking fountain, or anything, because if you got AIDS, you like died. Like it was scary. And you would see like the footage of these people, and they're like, oh my god, like this is like this plague that's going to destroy everything. But it follows Mark Patton as a working closeted gay actor, and how he starts off in the country, goes out, and moves to New York as a 17-year-old, starts doing commercial work and modeling, and he gets this job working on a play directed by Robert Altman that turns into a movie that stars Cher and Karen Black. It's like good. I think it's called "Goodbye to the Five and Dime," Jimmy Dean, something like that. If you Google Five and Dime Jimmy Dean, I'm sure you'll get it. I just don't remember what the first word is off the top of my head because I don't have my notes in front of me. But he becomes a star on Broadway working on this play, and then he gets in the movie version too, which is a big break. And then he gets tapped to do like pilots in LA, and pilots are basically like they shoot an episode of a TV show, and if the people who pick the TV shows like it, becomes a series, as Uma Thurman tells you in Pulp Fiction. That's pretty much it. But he doesn't really get cast into like the pilots. None of the pilots become a TV show. But while he's living in LA, he meets this other actor. His name is Timothy Patrick Murphy or something like that. But he's like a working actor on Dallas, and they hook up right away. And the tragedy is this actor ends up having AIDS, and from him, Mark gets the HIV virus. But while this is going on, he gets cast in A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and it's an interesting script where Freddy Krueger is trying to get into the real world, and he needs a body to kind of like be his meat suit in essence, using supernatural parlance, and Jesse's his meat suit. So the whole thing is almost played as this Freddy's trying to seduce him to the dark side so he can take over him, and it's like played with this sort of homoerotic overtones. And he tells like the story where Robert Englund was almost playing with him in some scenes and wanted to run his metal finger claw around his lip almost, till one of the makeup people like pulled you know, Mark away and goes, "Don't let him do that. It'll look like you're sucking a cock." You know, but there's like, you know, homoerotic subtext throughout the script. Like there's an S&M bar, you know, there's like this, you know, some choices he makes in the performances like lend some credence to the idea that like, oh, you know, I don't know what we're doing. And basically like the director really didn't help direct him. And the writer of the script, David Chaskin, was basically dropping all these like homoerotic subtext throughout the script. And when the movie comes out, his agents essentially drop in and goes, "We can get you work in movies, but you can't play a straight guy." And Mark Patton like disappears. He moves to Mexico, and he just kind of becomes like a recluse where he owns this little store in Puerto Vallarta. And he blames David Chaskin for ruining his career until years later, basically Nightmare on Elm Street 2 becomes this camp gay cult classic, and Mark Patton starts doing the convention rounds, and the kind of his goal throughout the film as a chronicalist is he wants to confront the writer of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And you know, now that the movies become campy and people like Peaches Christ are doing like send-ups of it, the writer's like, "Oh yeah, I put that in from the beginning," whereas years ago he's like, "No, that was all the performance that made that movie gay." So it's this like shutdown where like, you know, he claims the writer ruined his career, but now that it benefits him, he's like, "Oh yeah, I did." And Mark like wants answers, and that's kind of like the thrust of the film as he tells us his day-to-day life. And it's kind of an interesting film, you know. You follow him going to conventions. You find out that like, you know, he didn't develop full-blown AIDS till much later in life. So by then, like, they had the AIDS cocktails they have now where it's basically undetectable, versus when his lover in the 80s got full-blown AIDS. They didn't know what to do, and he like died like right away. So and now he like lives with, you know, his partner in Mexico, and he tells us how Mark goes on these conventions. When he comes back, he's like drained and sick from all the energy he expends in doing these conventions, you know. So it's kind of an interesting look behind the curtain if you ever wonder, like, oh, I wonder what this celebrity who does horror cons is like and what the experience is like for him. And kind of just seeing that celebrities are people too, or actors are people, and you know, you see that perspective, and it doesn't feel like a put on. It feels very genuine, and in that sense, I think it's a good movie. And if you're a fan of, you know, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2 or Never Sleep Again, the big documentary that's like 10 hours long about all these movies, you should probably check this out because it gives you more insight into the film. But overall, I would suggest checking this movie out. I think it's really good. And it's just a really, you know, good human documentary. You know, it has a good angle. And yeah, overall, it made me like, you know, rethink my opinion of Mark Patton a bit and Nightmare 2. And it's cool seeing, you know, other actors in the franchise kind of like, you know, pal around with him and kind of like get their perspective on being in this situation that Mark was in, and see how it played to them, like from the outside looking in or whatnot. Anyway, check it out. It's on Shudder now on demand. And like I said, if you enjoy this review, feel free to subscribe to us on Cult Classics AZ or follow us at cultfollowing.co. And yeah, just hit subscribe, share this with your friends, get notifications turned on. We'll have lots more reviews coming up, and yeah, just check us out. And you can find us at Cult Classics AZ, cultfollowing.co. More reviews coming up soon, so thanks for tuning in, guys. And I hope you enjoyed this review. Find more at cultfollowing.co, and we will see you soon. Thanks, guys.